Welcome back to another episode of Askewed Reviews. And today I'm reviewing a film that had a short theatrical release, but will hopefully be on streaming soon. The movie that I'm referring to is the 2025 film Silent Night, Deadly Night, directed and co-written by Mike P. Nelson. So that's correct. If you are a fan of the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise and weren't aware, they did in fact make this film, which is a remake slash reimagining of sorts. Now, if you're one of those individuals who's going, I've actually never heard of Silent Night, Deadly Night, that is a shame. If you're a big fan of horror films, especially Christmas horror, this is a great franchise to check out at some point. Now, mind you, not all the movies in the franchise are great, but they're at least worth a watch. This one, I think it now makes 7 in the franchise itself, which not all of them are interconnected. But if you wanted to learn a lot more about the previous films, I also did a series last year doing trivia reviews for all of the other movies. Now, whether or not you've seen any of the other films or if this is your first time, let me tell you more about the story to see if this is something that you want to check out for yourselves. So, in the film, we have our main character of Billy, who had an extremely rough Christmas when he was a child. You see, he and his parents went to go visit his grandfather at a retirement home. While there, his grandfather unfortunately passed away. And then, to make matters worse, on their way home, some psychopath in a car bumps into them, and then when they try to find out what this person is doing, that man who's dressed as Santa Claus comes out and murders both of his parents. Now, we don't really get to explore fully what happened that evening until later on in the film, but we have to assume that some way, somehow, Billy made it out of that situation alive, just due to the fact that as the film is now really getting into the story, we meet Billy as a fully grown adult. We do discover very quickly, though, that whatever happened that evening did not leave Billy unscathed, as now, as a grown adult, he has taken on the mantle of being a serial killer. He dresses up as Santa Claus and has this weird ritual related to an advent calendar that he carries with him. Now, his need for doling out death is not the only sign that there's something wrong with him, as apparently he also hears a voice in his head that tells him where to go and who to take out next. The problem for Billy is when you have an entire advent calendar worth of victims needed, there's a lot of bodies that are going to pile up, so he does tend to travel quite a bit. There usually isn't much that'll keep Billy in one location. However, in the next small, quaint little town that he ends up in, there is something, and that happens to be a young woman named Pamela. He can't seem to help but fall head over heels for this woman, so much so that he even gets a part-time job at the store that she works at, even though Charlie, the voice in his head, tells him that this is a terrible idea. So, will Billy finally be able to choose his want for love over his need for violence? Or will fate end up making the choice for him? So, here's what I'll say about the Silent Night, Deadly Night series. There are really only a couple of good ones, and then everything else is either just entertaining or pretty bad, actually. But they are still a fun Christmas time watch. So, with that in mind, coming into this film, I wasn't expecting too much, and I ended up being pleasantly surprised with how good this was. I would probably categorize this one as a horror comedy. I I feel like for the majority of it, it's definitely more serious, but there are some very funny moments. Now, let me tell you about why I absolutely enjoyed this one. And a little bit of a spoiler warning. I'm not going to really reveal too much, but a little bit here. I absolutely love the fact that this film is definitely an homage to the original one. There are some scenes that are similar, there are definitely some nods, but this isn't a one for one remake. And that's honestly something that I really did enjoy about this is that they added a whole new different and interesting element to this that really changes how the Silent Night Deadly Night series could go from here if they wanted to continue a whole new franchise. The only thing I'll say about that is they add in a supernatural element that really was pretty fascinating. And even though I kind of was able to figure it out before it was revealed, I still did enjoy how they explained it. Now, because I definitely watch too many movies and especially horror films, I was able to figure out the ending a little bit before it actually was revealed. And I was worried because it felt almost potentially cliche, but when it actually happened, it was way better than I thought it was going to be, and I am still interested in the potential of what could happen in a sequel. So, in my own opinion, I thoroughly enjoyed this one, so much so that it now might be my favorite in the franchise. And the biggest reasons for that is they did such a good job on making this one. Not only did they have a story that felt like a great homage to the originals, but was so original and different that it creates a new lore that can be expanded upon in future installments. I also want to give a big shout out to the cast. Not only were they fun, interesting, and relatable characters, but the acting was really well done for this, even though it's a film that not everyone's probably going to end up seeing just because of the limited release or the fact that once it's on streaming, it may not be on some of the most well known ones. But it's definitely one that I feel should not only be seen, but even one you might want to add to your regular rotation of annual Christmas movies. So, at least for me on my scale, I'm going to give this Silent Night, Deadly Night a 4 out of 5. If you have an opportunity to watch this, absolutely go and do so. And if you've already seen it, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if by any chance you don't watch any more of my content until after the holidays, well, I wish all of you out there a happy holiday and a happy new year.